Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole, it's committee number 2415, to order. I would request Mr. Longfellow to lead us on O Canada and ask everyone to stand up and face the flag.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Longfellow.
Thank you,
We
Mr. Mayor.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Could I like to entertain a motion to confirm the agenda? Moved by Mrs. Kenny, seconded by Councillor Doucette. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none, I wish the minutes to so note that. Thank you, Danny. Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 23-15 held on October 13th, 2015? Moved by Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Can I see the hands, please? Opposed? Carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Desmarais?
Item 1, please.
Item 1. Councillor Elliott?
Item 2.
Thank you. Any other items? There being none, I'd call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Yeah. Item 3, please. Item 3. Is there anyone else wishes to pull an item? There being none, then again, I would call for a motion to approve the items not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Elliott? Councillor Doucette? Seconded. Thank you. Again, call for the vote, just to be sure. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Madam Clerk, do we have any presentations this evening?
None this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And delegations? There are none. Mayor's report, there's only really one item that I wish to report. Was the little panic set in at the Planning Committee meeting when report number PDS 34-2015 respecting Niagara's establishing a growth strategy. And the motion was that we receive it and that we endorse it. Well, and then following that, there'd be consultation with the NPCA, the 12 regional communities, and Niagara Regional Housing. The difficulty was there was no consultation on this, and this was a huge change as far as this community is concerned. We have the Growth South strategy, basically since 2008. We supported that. And that reflected going down the two corridors, one Welland Canal corridor, toward the Port Colborne and the Niagara River from Fort Erie to Niagara Falls. And again, in 2009, the Niagara region adopted the growth management strategy. Our new official plan adopted it in 2012 and reflects the targets for growth in Port Colborne. The regions, or the numerous situations that reflected the Growth South strategy. The region's proposed 4-lane road on Netherby Road embraces the Growth South direction. The region's policy plan has growing south as a strategic objective. The approval of the Niagara Gateway Center and Zone demonstrates this growth to the south, and the province also recognized that in their growth plan. The region's Gateway Community Improvement Plan assists in job growth to the south. All of Port Colborne CIPs all support growth south. Commenting specifically on Port Colborne, the proposed servicing of Port Colborne's east side employment land supports growth south for jobs. Environmental assessment for the extension of a trunk water main from the Fielden Avenue Reservoir across the Welland Canal along the second concession to connect to the trunk water main on Highway 140 reflected that. So there were, over the years, there have been numerous initiatives for the growth strategy, growth south strategy. The planning document called Niagara 2041, Fostering an Environment for Economic Prosperity, focused to change the direction of the focus to an east-west strategy, although it didn't specifically say that. Reading between their lines, that's exactly what they were saying, which obviously wasn't something that Port Colborne would entertain willingly. Mr. Barrick and I lobbied, we're of the same mind on this. We lobbied and spoke with members of council, and at the Thursday meeting of the full council, the report was amended, deleting the endorsement by the Niagara Regional Council and indicating that consultations will now take place between now and the end of the first quarter in 2016, so that the planning representatives will come and speak specifically to our council, and you have an opportunity to speak to them after they present their plan, which is satisfactory to us at this stage. And moving forward without consultation just wasn't acceptable. And when we spoke to folks, they appreciated our position on it, and so that's the way it stands today. Anyone have any questions on this? Okay, then we'll move on. We have the regrets of the regional councilor this evening. David couldn't be with us, and so we'll move on then to councilors' items. We have Ms. Demaray. Item number 1?
No. Councilor's education.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Madam Demaray. Go ahead.
I would never disappoint, Mr. Mayor. I do have an item. Okay. First, it's actually it's an announcement that Councillor Doucette and I will be hosting one of our semi-annual ward meetings this Wednesday night. That's October 28th at 6:30 p.m. We'll be meeting in the community room at the Fire Hall. So all ward residents are more than welcome to attend, for any member of the public for that matter. We'll bring the residents up to speed on what the city's doing and speak about issues within the community, and be on hand to answer to any questions that people may have, and to bring information back to staff and other councillors. So we look forward to having that well attended. The other item I have is about tree cutting on Charlotte Street, and I did have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Hanson about this, but I had promised the people who called that I would bring it up at council to make sure that everybody is aware of the situation. Some maple trees were cut on Charlotte Street on Thursday by a local company. When the trees were cut, now there was a report by one of the residents that one of the trees were found to be healthy and it was a mistaken cutting. I truly don't know about that. That's something that Mr. Hanson assures me that wasn't the case. So I just want to make sure about that. The big problem is that the arborist we rely on to tell us whether a tree needs cutting is employed by the company that does the cutting. So the optics are bad, and people are questioning what's happening with that. And actually, if Mr. Hansen would, could you speak to why we do that, and whether or not there is another arborist available? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As council knows, the city doesn't currently employ an arborist full-time. We have several staff members on our crews that have a good working knowledge, having owned their own companies in terms of tree trimming and removal. We have them on staff. In many cases, we have a large list of trees that need trimming and removal due to the ash borer issue that's in front of us now. In many cases, it's very obvious which trees have to be trimmed and which trees have to be removed. They're completely dead. In some cases, we want to have an assessment done of a tree for various reasons. It's losing foliage, it's losing branches, and so on. So we employ the arborist. Currently, we're using Davey Tree Service this year. We've used other firms in the past. We currently use the arborist employed by Davey Tree Service as a resource person. If there's a question from our crews, our roads foreman and our crews on removal or trimming, we will ask the arborist with Davies to do an assessment of the tree. And they will do just a brief report on the findings to determine whether the tree should be just trimmed or removed. In the case of Charlotte Street, I have the 3 arborist reports here. There was obvious disease, cavities in all 3 trees. The recommendation from the arborist was that in those 3 cases, the trees be removed. It is still up to the roads foreman to make the determination if that goes forward. In these 3 cases, the trees had to be removed. There was no error made here. The determination was because of these large trees, there's a huge liability issue for the city if these trees were to fall, and we were aware that there's a disease problem with the trees. The option, we use this resource of Davies arborist at no cost to the city. The option would be if the city wanted to, on either a part-time basis or full-time basis, employ an arborist or bring an independent arborist in, but there's a cost associated with that. We find because of the large inventory of trees that we have to remove, there's certainly, while the optics raised may be an issue, there's certainly not an issue with the trees that have to be removed themselves. There's a large inventory. There'd be no reason for either the company or the city to take down a healthy tree. We have a large inventory that has to be done. We don't have enough money right now to address all the trees that have to be removed, and we'll be coming back to council at budget time for an additional budget allocation for tree removal. And we could consider employing an arborist. I know some of the larger municipalities do employ full-time arborists, a number of them within the municipality, but Port Colborne hasn't done that in the past. So that would strictly be at council's discretion if they deemed it to be necessary. So that's the service we provide right now, and we find it to be very cost effective.
Thank you, Director Hansen. Follow-up, supplementary, Councillor Desmarais.
I just thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Hansen. Thank you so much, Ron, for answering that. And that way it's out there in the public record for everyone to know so that the question has been answered. Thank you.
Any other questions of Director Hansen?
I have another one.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past week, we all received an email from the fire chief in regards to section of our city where they were going to homes and seeing if they were in compliance with a mandatory fire alarm, and the news we received from our fire chief was not good. So I asked the fire chief if he could come tonight and just speak to us briefly about it, and if there are any steps we can take to rectify this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Fire Chief Cartwright.
Your Worship, members of council. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. We've continued with our program over the remainder of last week and the beginning of this week. The program is certainly showing us that we have a problem in our city. The statistics that I gave you last week were 60%. That's grown to 69% of the homes in the city that we've checked to date don't have working smoke and or carbon monoxide alarms in them. That's of grave concern to us, simply because over the years we've made a concerted effort to offer smoke alarms to the community as a whole free of charge. It's not in one particular area. We've done both the east side of the city and the west side of the city. It got to the point on Friday we had one street in 13 houses we checked, none of them met the requirements of the law. It's disturbing to me in the sense that it's well known for years that you've required smoke alarms. It's also known widely in the community and throughout the province that you now need carbon monoxide alarms. We've expanded our program because of the issues with the bridge and Main Street. It's allowed us to have trucks on both sides working day to day, all day on various areas of the city. And we're not focusing on one particular area. We're trying to spread it out to get a feel for it, just where the troubled areas are. Right now, it's disturbing to have to think it's throughout the city as a whole. You'll see at our next council meeting, there's a report coming forward with a recommendation from myself as to how to better deal with this. It's going to take us a bit of time and a bit of training, but we are going to use all of our resources in the new year, including our volunteers, to have a citywide program 7 days a week. What we also are implementing, and council recently supported our fee schedule and the report that I took prior to that with regards to smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. The process that we want to implement and are implementing is that if we come to your door and you let us in and we find that you're in non-compliance, before we leave, we install the necessary alarms and we will bill you for the cost of those alarms. If we come to your house because of a complaint or because in the process of dealing with a call at your property and we find you're in non-compliance, we will install alarms of both types. We will bill you for those alarms, plus we're going to issue a ticket for just over $300 for non-compliance. I hate to have to say we got to get tougher, but I think we have to get tougher because being nice hasn't paid dividends for us. And the report will be coming forward to council at our next council meeting with the hope that we get council support.
Councillor Kennedy, do you have any supplementary?
No, I was very disheartened, I guess, to think that even though we have done all kinds of education in this regard, that we still don't have enough people interested. A life, a life, maybe more than one life, depends so much on those two items in your home. And so I want to thank the chief and the staff, his staff who have gone out to these homes and tried to tell them the importance once again in the fact that they're taking the time to install these and then build them back. But the fine is necessary. The fine, I will support that fine. If that's what it takes to wake them up, then that's what it takes to wake them up. But I just want to thank the chief for coming and explain to all of us and those who are listening on COGECO that if you don't have these two very important items in your home, you best be getting them. Thanks, Chief, for coming out. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Main?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Cartwright. Just a simple clarification. You said if the people let us in, do they have the right to refuse you to come in the door?
We've never had to pursue it, but we could get a warrant under the law through you or your worship, the councillor may. We have the ability to go to a judge and get a warrant. We've never used that. We consider that to be extreme. We like to think we can sell ourselves to get into your house to make your home safer. We've been very successful with the exception of one home. This last Friday we had a major issue with that particular homeowner. It's continued on throughout the day today. We still haven't been able to get into that home. It's an elderly person.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any other questions? Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Doucette.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the chief. I assume that, for lack of a better term, we're using kid gloves with single-family residential homes, but anything that's not in compliance on the multi-unit commercial and industrial sectors are looked at completely differently, I hope.
Your worship, through yourself to council, what we will normally be doing with a single residence is dealing with it as I previously described. If you're a homeowner or a property owner of a multi-residential property, we won't be issuing you a ticket. We will charge you in the Ontario Fire Code, and the fine will be in excess of $2,500. That's what the courts have been levying.
Councillor Doucette.
Perfect.
Just to confirm everything the chief has been saying, I watched them. They were near my house last week. And one area, I figured it would take them maybe a half a day to go down the street. And they did 10 houses in a day. So that means they were doing exactly what he was saying. They were going in, they were finding none, they were installing them. That takes much longer. Because I just figured they'd go down the street, and especially in the area where I saw them. I mean, I would just had expected everyone to have them. They don't. It took them 2 days to do that street, which I found absolutely unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. So it's, Chief, you've got my support. Keep plugging away. I was expecting them to come to my house, but they never did. But I'm okay. I'm all hardwired in, so.
Any other
Thank you.
questions from council? Chief, what is the fine? You told us what the is it a ticket?
Your Worship, I believe the ticket will be $295 plus there's a court cost for it, for the issuance of that ticket. So it's somewhere in the area of $330.
Thank you. Any other councillors' items? No more councillors' items, and we'll move on. Oh, Mr. Danch?
I just wonder if we could ask Ron a couple questions there. Of course, the people on the island are always wondering, and I hope when you guys have your meeting, you're going to leave a little extra time to get across town, because it's been a bit of a problem for sure, depending on the time of day. When we come across the center bridge there's a sign there that's, it says, all trucks must turn left and local traffic only is on the ramp there. I just wonder if maybe we can move that over a couple feet, because it's almost like saying, like, don't go down there because there's not enough room to even get your car by. And I know we had some truck issues and stuff like that, but those guys out on the island there, they're still trying to progress. So I just wonder if we can get a little thought on that idea.
Through Mr. Mayor, we can certainly move that sign, as Councillor Danch has suggested. The sign was intentionally placed a bit obtrusive to the road itself, because in the first week when the detour was in place, there were so many transports still turning right and getting trapped on the main street. We're having such a problem. The suggestion was actually made to make the sign so only a car or a small truck could get around it. So that was really the intent. Hopefully it solved that problem with the transport trucks. We're not still seeing them on Main Street, but we can ask the Seaway to move that sign over slightly.
And I kind of wondered update-wise, I mean, no doubt the Weir Bridge is another concern. The Main Street Bridge, we know what's going on, but are we moving forward? We're going to be on schedule there, or?
Through Mr. Mayor, I couldn't make any comment on scheduling. It's obvious in looking at the construction, it's extensive. I don't think the Seaway or the contractor were fully aware of what the extent might be until they actually uncovered what was in the bridge deck there now. They've certainly made extensive removals of the existing concrete on the bridge, and it looks like it's fairly extensive. Whether it's going to be on schedule to the November 27th completion, I couldn't say definitively whether that's going to happen, but we've asked the Seaway to keep us as a municipality fully updated on the progress of the job, and we're going to hold them to that and ensure that everything gets done as per the contractor's schedule. I know they're working extended hours at the present time, so we'll keep council updated with some emails as it progresses.
Okay. Councillor Bodnar.
Through Mr. Mayor, to, I guess, Ron again while he's talking. The lights at that bridge at 19A, I think there was a request, I don't know, Councillor Kenny made it or whatever, to kind of look at that and tweak it while we have the bridges up. I don't think it's been tweaked. At least I had the great pleasure to sit there through a number of lights trying to get across from the east to the west. And while you're talking to him, or if you're talking to him again, would it make any sense to make the light on the west side a flashing red? Because what happens when you're sitting there on the east side and the light turns green for you to go, you can't go because that whole row is jammed with cars waiting to clear. Either that light doesn't turn green fast enough on the other side, but if it was a flashing red, because well, very few people are coming from Main Street, and hardly anyone is going through to Main Street. Sorry, Frank, but they aren't. To the island anyways, no. But, you know, and you're sitting there and it's frustrating. The light's green, everybody wants to turn. You can't turn because the whole thing's jammed up. Whereas if it was a flashing red, at least that line could be gone before that green light even changed and you could be done. I'm not a traffic engineer, but when you're sitting there, sometimes it makes sense, so.
Director Hansen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. We had a discussion on this. I attended a meeting with MTO and the region in terms of the truck detour about a week ago. And I brought up the issue of potentially changing the red, no turn on red, as was suggested at council at the previous meeting. There were some back and forth on the pros and cons of that. There was some suggestion that perhaps the southbound no turn red would actually make the problem worse, because the backups southbound to get across 19A are extensive now, and that might actually increase the volume that are waiting for the lights that way. So there wasn't a good response from the traffic people from the region and MTO on that. We can certainly review it again. I think the biggest problem that we see, and even when 19 was still in operation, the biggest problem we see is the turning movements, how the traffic signals, it's very difficult to adjust the traffic signals to the traffic itself because of the bridge operation. We see it even when all three bridges are operating, that when 19 goes up and 21 goes up, we're still seeing this funneling effect in the backups to cross 19A, and there's no way to adjust those lights to really, depending on the time of day, you know, late afternoon, there's more traffic, in the middle of the night. How do you adjust the traffic signals to correspond to the bridge operation at the same time? And that's really the dilemma. It's something that we're always looking at and asking the region to deal with. We're looking at, with the new operations center, changing that three-way intersection there now to a four-way operation, and at that time there'll be some adjustment to the operation of those signals as well, and possibly removal of one of the islands to facilitate a left turn into the operations center. So these things are all in the works. Whether anything can be done in the short term to help the problem at the middle bridge, we'll certainly take that back to the region and ask them to review that if we can.
Thank you, Director Hansen. Any other? Councillor Rodner, go ahead. Supplementary?
Not to that particular one, but something new. I just thought it might be appropriate to congratulate former Mayor Badaway on his recent election to as a member of Parliament, and just to remind him, no pressure, buddy, but it's been a long time since you know, a sitting member was also in with the party in power. So, you know, just saying, we're here. Don't let them forget about us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Badaway has consulted my office, and I'll be meeting with him on Wednesday to present him with a wish list of items that we would like some assistance with. Okay, any other questions of our staff? There being none, I'd move on to those items requiring separate discussion. Item number 1, Councilor Demery picked, but you will note that there is a blank that the council appointment to the committee has not been addressed. I'm prepared to entertain nominations for an individual from council to sit on that committee. Councilor Butters?
I would like to nominate Councilor Demery.
Is there a seconder for that? Councilor Kenny? Any other nominations? There being none, then Councilor Demery, you are claimed to that position. Thank you very much for agreeing to stand. You will certainly undertake those duties with great deal of acumen, I'm sure. Okay, then, Councillor Elliott, we're moving on, we're just gonna. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yep, I was going to say.
Are you reading it or is Councillor Demeray?
Councillor Demeray.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Administrative Officer, Health Services Division, report number 2015-163, subject, Port Colborne Social Determinants of Health Advisory Committee, everyone matters.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Main. Any discussion? Call for the question?
No.
Oh, we got discussion? Go ahead. Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick thing on the, where is it? With regards to staff comments and discussion, the second paragraph under that, it says the municipality has a critical role to play in mobilizing the community and bringing all of the social service stakeholders together to champion and enable ongoing implementation of local poverty reduction strategies. The municipality holds the responsibility for property standards and bylaw enforcement in the housing sector. A review of city bylaws is critical to ensure healthy housing conditions exist for residents. Now, if I'm not mistaken, when we decided to have the East Side Task Force, they were going to be tasked with the same thing. Well, you did put in your motion that you wanted some bylaws changed. That's the reason that I voted against it, because it was an ambiguous amendment to the motion that said review of the bylaws and direction to staff for property standards. And that's what the motion read, if I am correct in my recollection of that. And it was an ambiguous statement about bylaws. Now we have this committee that is going to look at a review of bylaws. So now you've got two committees that are going to review bylaws. Are they reviewing the same bylaws, or are they reviewing different ones? My questions are, well, okay. Then I'll withdraw any of my comments.
Councillor Demeray, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. For this motion, I was going to ask that Joanne Ferraccioli come up and speak to the forming of this committee. And just quickly to Councillor Elliott's comments, the task force will not be reviewing bylaws. That was just a suggestion that that we would support staff's continuing work on their bylaw initiatives. That's all it was.
Ms. Ferraccioli, you have a presentation?
Yes, Your Worship, members of council. This evening with me, I also have Tara Lee McLean, who is the Executive Director of Bridges Community Health Center. And so if there are any other questions, she's an excellent resource and can probably answer them a whole lot better than I can. But as part of the presentation of what social determinants of health are, we have a very short video from the Wellesley Institute that I would really like for you to all to watch, because this really explains what the social determinants of health are and how a municipality can become involved.
What is good, and how do we move toward a healthier future? Many Canadians believe that a good healthcare system is the ticket to health. But good health is more than just doctors, drugs, and hospitals. Healthcare is what we access when we're already sick. Some of today's most prevalent healthcare issues include heart disease, diabetes, childhood obesity, and depression. But what is good health, and how do we move toward a healthier future? Many Canadians believe that a good healthcare system is the ticket to health. But good health is more than just doctors, drugs, and hospitals. Healthcare is what we access when we're already sick. Some of today's most prevalent healthcare issues include heart disease, diabetes, childhood obesity, and depression. But what are the causes of these issues? How often do we talk about what happens before the doctor? Let's look at the underlying differences between healthy and unhealthy societies. Starting with the facts. Although immigrants arrive healthier than people born in Canada, their health generally declines over time. People with low income are more likely to report poor health. Neighborhoods where good transit, healthy food, and public services are difficult to access are more likely to have higher diabetes rates. Why is this the case? How do we move toward a healthier future? To find out, we need to step outside of the healthcare system for a moment and take in the big picture. After all, healthcare is what we do when we're already sick. Let's look at the root of the problem, because changes at the roots benefit us all, no matter who we are. We're talking about things like where we work, play, eat, and live. We're talking about the social determinants of health. Access to healthcare is an important social determinant of health. But there are many others that are just as important, some that might surprise you. Working a secure job with benefits, feeling part of a strong and vibrant community, living in a safe, affordable home, living in a neighborhood that is easy to get around in with parks and community spaces, accessing healthy and affordable food, and having opportunities to pursue education. Our health and well-being is shaped by our daily lives and how our economic and social conditions affect us. These conditions don't work in isolation. In fact, they're all connected like a big, complex web. Let's start making the connections. Access to education means gaining skills to find employment. A good job that pays well means you can afford to pay your rent and your bills. Having more affordable housing also frees up money for good and healthy food. Safe, well-connected streets in our neighborhood make it easier to get where we need to go and back home again. When all of this is available, we can better connect with our neighbors and communities. For parents, these also mean helping their kids do better in school. And let's not forget access to healthcare. We've only mentioned 7 determinants here, but there are many others. What about racism, sexism, and culture? What determinants play a role in your health? Because the social determinants of health are so closely connected, one change can trigger many others that affect your health. If every kid had access to healthy food and a safe home, imagine the difference it could make to their education and their health over time. The connections and the possibilities for good health are endless. So from small changes in your neighborhood, like clean, well-lit parks, to big steps in government policy, like a national housing plan, we can start making the connections to a healthier community, a healthier city, a healthier society, a healthier you.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments?
No, just that we are very excited to roll up our sleeves and get to work and start with making some small changes, and that will hopefully lead to larger changes that go all the way up to policy, as the video suggests.
Are there any questions of Mrs. Faracholi? Okay, no further questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on a point of, I don't know if you want to, there's no clarification, just point of order. Last week, item number 1, Chief Administrative Officer Report number 2015-184, subject East Village Neighborhood Improvement Task Force. Council resolved 4 items, or 4 bullets on this. Number 3, that the Director of Planning and Development be directed to report back regarding revisions to bylaw enforcement and property standards bylaws, and to make the revisions and responses to property standard complaints a priority. That directs the Director of Planning and Development to make revisions to bylaw enforcement and property standards bylaw, and to make the revisions. And it doesn't say what revisions to what bylaws, which I was talking about. And in this committee, the same thing is asked to visit and revise housing standards bylaws. Are both committees looking at the same revisions to bylaws? That was my question originally. That was passed last week to make revisions to bylaws, full stop. So are we having two committees looking at the same bylaws for revisions? That's my question.
Councilor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor Elliott's question, I would think that all of the committees concerned with moving the city forward would take any suggested changes to bylaws and forward those suggestions on to the proper authority, whatever staff member that may be, or the Property Standards Committee. We also have a Property Standards Committee that looks at bylaws as well. So we're all engaged in looking at bylaws all the time and suggesting changes. It's just a matter of continuing on with the status quo. That's how I read that, is to continue doing what you're doing and support staff in what they're doing.
Councilor Doucette, did you have a comment?
No, she said it all.
Councilor Elliott?
Well, now you've got three committees
More than that.
that study bylaws. You've got Property Standards Committee. You've got a East Village Task Force. And we've got the, well, but it's written in the report that that's going to be part of their thing. And I'm fully in support of the committee, absolutely. But when you've got three different committees all talking about the same thing that are going to promote it to council on what their vision of bylaw revision is, because it doesn't go to staff, it comes to council for council's approval, may go to staff to have them write a report, but we have three committees that are going to talk about the same things. Why do we do that? Isn't that a little redundant?
Councilor Doucette?
I don't believe we're going to be looking at the same bylaws. First of all, the task force is strictly requesting that if there are any changes that are necessary to help us with the East Village, that those changes be made, but it will be up to the bylaw people to decide whether those changes are not, and then it'll come back to here. But we are not looking specifically at bylaws to change bylaws. This committee, I believe, will do that. We'll look at bylaws and adjust bylaws so that it will fit what it is that we are planning and would like to have. The task force is not looking at changing anything and not looking specifically at a bylaw. But if there is an adjustment that can be made to allow things to function better, then the bylaw people will let us know, and then it'll come back to council, and council will have to make a decision on that. That's where that comes from the task force area. Maybe CAO can let me in, but I believe that's the interpretation that I was under for the task force, and that means that there is no overlap between the two. So, and the task force thing was already been passed, so we're revisiting it all over again.
CAO Louis, do you have a comment?
Through your worship, to Councillor Elliott, Councillor Doucette, all of council. I think that while the wording is quite similar, I don't think that there's built-in redundancy into the two committees. I mean, I think that there is a role. In fact, the staff report here says the municipality, the city that is, the city holds responsibility for maintaining its bylaws and making sure that they're up to date. So I think there is a role for both committees in that, as they're both committees of council. Councilor Elliott is right insofar as any changes to any bylaws are going to be before council. Council is the only party that can change a bylaw, not a committee of council, not a task force, and not staff unilaterally. So it will be back before council. I understand that it appears from the words that there's duplication, but I don't think that's the fact.
Councilor Kenny, then Councilor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to read a couple lines from this report. And it just says, participation and leadership of municipalities in addressing social detriments of health is crucial. Part of moving forward with this initiative requires council to be apprised of some facts and data in the areas of poverty, affordable housing, and access to adequate food. Should we wait? It says, should we wait for the provinces to improve the quality of life at a local level? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we have to take the first step. And I think this is the first step. We have many agencies involved, Your Worship, and I fully support this and going forward. And hey, we have to take a leadership role, and that's our responsibility.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Kenny.
you.
Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of weeks ago was the task force night, and tonight is for this committee. And I see this committee as, I'm so happy that this report's come forward. We have the ability at this point with this to move forward in a way that we have never done before. We have people at the table that we are being brought together in a way that is so positive. When I look at the work that Joanne has done, when I know of the work that Tara-Lee McLean has done with Bridges, the different people in this partnership, it is amazing. And if there is some worry about redundancy and language to do with bylaws, you know, our whole purpose is to make this city better. Our whole purpose is to try to create a healthy community for everyone. And to me, this is the night that we are going to be celebrating the passage of this. And let's not get bogged down in some, you know, language bits that really don't matter at the end of it all, because each of those committees has a real job to do here, and there's going to be crisscross, I have no doubt, and I think that's going to be a good thing because they're going to be helpful to each other. So with that, I'm fully supportive of this tonight, delighted that it's come forward, and I'm looking to help in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Councillor Demery, you had your hand again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that none of our committees should work in silos. We should all be sharing information, and we should have discussion between us. That's how we're going to move forward. This is all about creating a vibrant, healthy future for Port Colborne, one that will allow Port Colborne to grow. We're not going to do it without all of us being at the same table at one time or another. And if it means a little overlap, well, so what? It's, you know, it really doesn't matter. In the language, it's potato, potato. Let's just get the work done. We all know what we want to do, and let's get working at doing it. That's all. I think this is a great night.
Thank you, Councillor Demery. Councillor Doucette?
I agree with the ladies. It's a great night. There are indications. I've been reading a lot about poverty, how to solve poverty, how to get children out of poverty, because we have a lot of children in this country that are living in high levels of poverty. And there are cities in Canada that have been able to do it. But it is the cities that took responsibility, like we are going to be doing this evening, to study, take a look at it, and start. The only way to solve the poverty issue, the only way to solve the housing issue, the only way to solve anything that has to do with social impact has to be grassroots. And we are the grassroots. This is where it has to start. Because if we wait for the province and we wait for Canada to do it, the country itself, we're probably going to wait another 40 years and still, okay? We have to start here. And this is the beginning, and I look forward to continuing and seeing reports from this committee and seeing how I can support it.
Any other comments, questions? Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? I believe that was unanimous. Councillor Doucette, did you have your hand up there?
Unanimous. Yes, I have a hand up.
Thank you. Carried. Thank you, Mrs. Vericcioli. Thank you, Mrs. McLean. Item number 2, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning and Development Report number 2015-187, subject to recommendation report on the creation of an Economic Development Advisory Committee and a Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee.
As the previous item, there are 2 councillors to be appointed to this committee. At least to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, there are 2, and also there are 2 for the Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee. I'm prepared to entertain. I'm sorry? 1, that's correct. I'm prepared to entertain nominations for the Economic Committee, Economic Development Advisory Committee. Councillor,
I'd like to nominate Councillor Main as one of the Economic Development Advisory Committee.
is there a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Desmarais? Councillor Doucette?
And I'm prepared to nominate Councillor Elliott for the second post.
Is there a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Bodnar? Is there any other nominations? There be none. Those are the two nominees, Councillor Elliott and Councillor Bodnar.
No,
No,
Councillor Main.
Councillor Main.
Maine, that's right, John, I'm sorry. All right, can we move on to the nomination for a councillor on the Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee? Councillor Desmarais?
Your worship, are we going to vote on those two first?
Well,
It's all together.
Okay.
they're all part of the same resolution, and
I would like to nominate Councillor Bodnar for the Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee.
is there a seconder for that nomination?
I'll second that.
Councillor Butters?
Sure.
Are there any other nominations? Yes. You're prepared to sit, I hope, Councillor Bodnar?
Or stand.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Yeah, no, I will. But is it a city councillor and a member of the Niagara South Coast Tourism Association?
Could someone
Can
give
we
me some
have-
direction in that respect? Mr. Osh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, in response to Councillor Bodner's question, yes, it is both. There is allowance for both a city councillor and a representative of the board of directors of the Niagara South Coast Tourism Association. If the council representative happens to be the person who is also on the board of directors of the Niagara South Coast Tourism Association, there could be another member from a Port Colborne business from the Tourism Association appointed to the committee, or the seat could be held in abeyance until the Niagara South Coast Tourism Association is able to suggest a member. Thank you.
I guess just for conversation, would we not want a councillor on there?
What are you?
And then, I know, but if I represented Niagara South Coast Tourism Association, then we could still have another councillor on there. Am I correct, or is that a?
So it's better to have another one?
Well,
Which would you prefer?
I'm just throwing that out there, you know. Oh. Well, I can sit as a member of Niagara South Coast Tourism Association. And then if we want to have a councillor on there, I'm just throwing that out there.
6 of one, half dozen
you know.
of the other.
Yeah.
You are.
Doesn't matter. I'll sit on whatever spot council would like me to sit on, Mr. Mayor.
Or would you like to have someone else from your the South Coast Tourism Association? Would you like to have another individual sit on this committee?
That might be a better.
Yeah.
So I'll serve as a councillor.
Okay. Are there any other? Councillor Elliott had a question.
We gotta prove that, and I just have one other.
Well, if he's the only nominee, then he's acclaimed the position.
Yeah.
Councillor Elliott, then?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make two amendments to the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that being on point 3, the Economic Development Advisory Committee shall consist of the following voting and non-voting members. And in subsection A, it says up to 12 voting members, including 2 representatives from City Council, 1 representative from the Port Colborne Wainfleet Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, 1 representative from the Main Street Business Improvement Area Board of Directors, and 1 representative from the Downtown Port Colborne Business Improvement Area Board of Directors. For those 2, for the Main Street BIA and the Downtown BIA, can we delete Board of Directors and just leave in 1 representative from the Main Street BIA and 1 representative from the Downtown Port Colborne BIA? They don't have to be members of the board, they just have to be members of the BIAs. And I'll put that forward as an amendment.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Councillor Butters?
So these members of the separate BIAs, then they're not really representing the BIA community that they come from? Is that your thought process?
No, they would be
They
representing.
would be representing, but it would be, if anybody that is a member of either of the BIAs wants to be on the committee, that the BIAs could solicit, I guess,
The
nominations from anybody.
Don't have to be a
You
member
don't have
of
to be on the
executive.
board.
Oh,
You could just be a member of the
do you find
BIA.
that too limiting, Councillor Elliott?
I would, because you never know how many people, you may have somebody that really wants to sit on something, and this committee would probably meet quarterly, if that, and may not want to commit themselves to meeting monthly and be too involved in the absolute month-to-month running of the BIA, but may feel better that they want something at a bigger level that only meets 4 times a year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Then we'll have a discussion, we'll have a vote on the amendment. Does everyone understand the amendment? Mr. Osh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if Councillor Elliott can clarify, and this is partially my fault for having 2 committees formed and out of 1 report. Is this amendment just for the Economic Development Advisory Committee? Is there also one for the Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee? That's my question.
I believe the thought was that we just the tourism. Is that
Not
correct?
tourism,
No, the
no, economic,
Just for ACDEV,
not for tourism.
not for tourism, no.
Okay, now I'm confused.
Same wording as in the other one.
Help us, Ashton.
Committees.
That's Ashley.
Dan wants to say.
Mr. Aquilina?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just for some clarification through you to Councillor Elliott, is the member of the BIA going to be appointed or chosen by the board of the BIA to then come before council for consideration? Is that what the...
I'll throw that back to Evan. We did have a discussion, and I would like to see it as open as possible to anybody that wants to become a member. Generally, for our committees, council chooses the committee members. For all our other committees of council, although it's an ad hoc committee, we would like to see us solicit applications from the at-large, from the BIA, and have us select who gets to be the members. If we're going to continue with the way that we've been going all along, as long as people that submit that they want to be on, just let us know that they're applying through being a member of the BIA. I think it would be hold to our fast rules that we select who sits on the committees through application.
But I think that the BIA board would have to confirm that whoever the representative would be is in fact a member of the BIA. We don't have knowledge necessarily of who the members are, but your board does.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. I mean, if that's a problem with the BIA, they can let us know, but I don't think it's going to be an issue to find out if somebody that's made application as a member of the BIA is actually a member.
So, Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really think it's important that anyone coming and speaking for the BIAs or the chamber, however that goes, should be appointed by that body. And then council can accept or not, but they should be appointed by that body in order to be able to say they truly speak for that body. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Main.
Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Elliott. I totally agree with Dave, because there's lots of people who are in the BIA that don't sit on the executive, but they might have that certain bit of expertise that the Economic Development Board needs. And basically, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's a great idea. It opens it up more, it makes it fair, and it makes it so that you don't basically have to sit on the board to represent one little section of
That's right.
what we're after, so I will support that amendment. It's good, it's a great idea.
But they need to be appointed through that organization, right?
Further discussion, Councilor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that I really believe that they should be appointed through that organization, though. And that's all that matters. But no, they shouldn't have to sit on the board. Dave's correct about that.
Okay. Councilor Elliott.
And I could go either way. The only thing that I want to know is that if we're going to have the boards of the BIAs appoint a member, are they going to pull all of their members and accept applications from everybody? Or are they just going to pick somebody that they want to appoint? Because, I mean, you're trying to get a cross-section of people. So you may, like Councilor Main said, we may have somebody in the BIA that really hasn't heard of this yet and is going to hear of it tomorrow or the next day for the first time that might want to come forward. You should solicit responses from your membership to see who wants to actually sit on it instead of just having them appoint somebody that they want to have appointed. Do you know what I mean? It should be an inclusive committee and everybody should have a chance to sit on it.
Okay, can we have the amendments to the original motion read back so everyone knows what they're voting on as far as the amendment goes? Sorry, Madam Clerk, to put you on the spot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point in time, the amendment on the floor is that the terms of reference be amended in order to remove the stipulation that the BIA membership has to be a member from the board of directors. So basically that it can be the general membership, and I'm explaining what the motion is right now. I'm not reading out the wording. Yeah. At this point in time, though, the motion is not clear about the way that the interest is going to be solicited or whether it would be from the general public through an open recruitment process or if it would be through the board. And if I could comment on that, Mr. Mayor, my recommendation to council would be that this process, if you're going to open it to the general membership of the BIA, you should follow the process that's provided for the appointments of the chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer of the BIAs, and that is that the BIA solicits interest from its general membership through emails, and oftentimes then they'll hold a meeting and actually receive nominations. And at that point, then the BIA can make a recommendation to council, and council will then make the appointment.
Okay. Are we ready then to vote on the amendment? Councilor Elliott.
So we will change it to that the BIAs solicit or recruit from their entire BIAs and recommend a member. But you're going to say that it has to go to the general membership of the BIAs in order to get promoted to council. Okay? If you can incorporate that, so is everybody clear?
I think everyone understands that.
On how that goes? That's the way that it should be.
Councilor Kenny?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure. So the membership is just the general membership, not any voting, not just the voting, because I know you have just voting members at the BIA, and then you have membership, right? So just the executive that gets to vote, right, at meetings, not everybody. That's my understanding. So if that's, I just want to make sure that then that means not necessarily would be an executive member. No. Right. Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
Solicited through the whole membership.
Yes, and I think that, and through you, Mayor, I think that the clerk had said that it should be put to the general membership. And generally, the BIAs only have they only have a collective vote once a year at the AGM, and everything else that's done in a business, for the business of the BIA is voted on by the executive board. So that's the only time that the board votes on its own is during the monthly meetings, but it's at the AGM. So this would be another one of those votes where the general membership would vote on who the representative would be.
Are we We're good now? Okay, voting on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now we'll vote on the resolution, or the recommendation as amended.
The appointees, Your Worship?
The
Voting on the appointees?
yeah, appointees have been taken care of. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 3, Councilor Danch.
Engineering and Operations Department, Operations Division, Report number 2015-186, subject water meter replacements, project approval.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Councilor Doucette? Any discussion? Councilor Danch?
I see Darlene's out there just waiting for us. Just because we're all members of this community and we're all paying and stuff like that, and we see a huge dollar amount attached to this water meter replacement, somewhere around the just over 2 million plus. Originally, those water meters were put in 20 years ago, and the selling point back then was that we're going to put these meters in and we're going to find these leaks and we're going to have a better system and it's going to save us all money. That's 20 years later, and now we want to spend $2 million plus. So I just wondered if, like, in the last 20 years, what have we got out of metering our water for the people? Because we're all paying it and we all see what's going on, but we're still getting another bill here. So that's my first question, and I got 2 more to go with that. So I don't know if Ron wants to talk on it or Darlene wants to talk on it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The premise behind the metering, I think everybody's aware, is that it's a user-pay system. We went from a flat rate system in the early 90s to a user-pay system. And the intent then in setting the rates and metering a system completely, ensuring everything's metered, is to set up a utility. It's basically a water utility that can't be funded by any other form of funds other than the people that actually use the system. So that's really the intent. So go back to 1994-95, 20 years. At the time, there's really no way of knowing how long an individual meter might last. I know there's meters that are still in place after 20 years, still functioning, but most of the meters, as we go in and test now, and is indicated in the report, that 40% of the meters that we've tested are deemed to be inaccurate now over the 20-year period. So it's time to do the retrofit. There's a vast improvement in the type of metering that's available now with RF meters, and especially data logging. We spend a great deal of time, Darlene's crews spend a great deal of time looking at high billing complaints from the public. The data logging capabilities of these new meters will allow homeowners themselves in time to determine what their usage is, and we can go back for 90 days and take a look at usage on the system and determine what the specific issues are for that home. So that's a huge improvement. The biggest improvement with the RF meters, obviously, is the ability to read them very, very quickly and do the billing in a much simpler method. And going forward with that. So there will be cost savings in terms of water billing and reading of the meters. We run into the problem, as we've discussed before, in a severe winter situation, we couldn't really read many of the meters because of snow and the cold weather and so on. So huge advantage with RF meters being able to do that. There's many other benefits to it, but in essence, I think just to answer Councillor Danch's original question, is that the 20-year-old meters, most of them have expired their useful lifetime and they need to be replaced. This is the best technology that we can recommend to council at the present time to move forward with that.
Councillor Danch?
That's fine, Ron, because I'm sure it's going to be talk on the streets and stuff like that as time goes on here. My second question is in regards to the security screws and stuff like that. $31,000 for security screws. I see Darlene's getting up there, so. But I just, like, the two companies are associated here. Buddy's selling the meters to the other guy, and the other guy's selling the screws to us for $31,000. I sell nuts and bolts and screws, and that's an awful lot of money for a tamper-proof screw. I just wonder if you can enlighten me a little bit on that one.
Mrs. Sutter?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Danch. The tamper-proof screws, they're actually, the company we're going to purchase them from doesn't actually manufacture them. It's from a company in the U.S. And what's unique about them is they're, I don't know if the proper terminology, but they're very fine pattern on them, and the pattern is registered to the city of Port Colborne. So the only way you can take the screws in or take them out, you can't just go to your store and buy a screwdriver for it. It's a registered tool that has a serial number on them that is assigned to Port Colborne. So the manufacturer knows city of Port Colborne has this screw pattern, and this is the tool used to remove them. So they are quite expensive. I usually purchase about 100 at a time, so I was myself taken off guard, but it's well worth it. As I mentioned, there are YouTube videos where you can go online, and people do, on how to pop those registers off, and municipalities know, and you hear anecdotally of people, oh, I'm doing the laundry, I pop the register off. Oh, I'm done doing the laundry, I put the register back on. We encounter it all the time, and other municipalities do as well. So this tamper-proof screw, you can't take it out. You can't take the register off the body. So it's well worth. I think it works out to about $6 a screw or something like that. So it's very cheap insurance to make sure that people can't tamper with the meter, in my opinion.
Just because I like to be Canadian, Pollen's a manufacturer in Canada that sells all kinds of nuts, bolts, and screws. I mean, could they not be someone that could supply us with this type of screw for this thing, and we'll keep giving a Canadian a job, or we can't do that?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's something we could investigate, perhaps. I'm not sure. I know Evans Supply is a Canadian company that we source them through. We do have, like I say, we've got 750 meters out there now that have these screws on them, so I don't know if they're being added expense in buying different tools, getting the patterns registered, because the tools themselves you have to purchase in order to take the screws off. So, so I'm not certain on that. We could, if you want us to investigate, we could. I just don't want to hold the project up because we want to get going as well. So.
Those are my questions. I don't know. I say I'm still not comfortable with spending $2 million on water meters, but we'll see what happens.
Any other questions of Mrs. Sutter? Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it's through you to Councillor Danch, but regarding the screws. Frank, what kind of savings were you thinking about? Like, considering $6 a screw, what were you thinking?
I know what a tamper-proof screw and stuff like that is. I mean, there's no problem there. I'm just wondering, you know, like it seems like an awful lot of bucks for something that we're doing for the second time. And like, why aren't these things manufactured with those parts in them? If everybody's gonna Google on how to get around it, well, then the manufacturer should be just putting this into play. It's like a car with all the options, but it doesn't come with tires. And I just found in an over and above to charge me for screws that should be in the item anyway. So what are we gonna do with all these screws we take out? Because obviously they're specific for what they're coming out of, and they're gonna be right in the garbage because that's all they're good for.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I think the challenge with the manufacturer would be they manufacture so many of these water meters that if they sent them from the factory with a tamper-proof screw in them, you'd have no way of matching the design of the screw to who you give it to. This way we get to pick the design, what we use, it matches what we currently already have. It's not something, like, I think that's why they come from the manufacturer, they have a plastic pin in them, and people just pop the plastic pin out. So this takes the place of the plastic pin. It's been our practice for many years now, because we have seen evidence of tampering, that whenever we do replace a register or go to install a new meter or do a service call, we would also pop out the plastic pin and put the tamper-proof screw in. That's something we've been doing since before I took over the program 4 years ago.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. Councillor Danch, I don't think you're the only one at this table that is can't believe this project is costing so much money. What amazed me before we chose this company, and like I said, when he came to the thing, you painted us in a corner. It got that, we had no other choice, right? That's the guy we had to choose. But after, what, 4 years or 2 years of study, we just found out that he doesn't supply the tamper-proof screws. That was bad enough when I read the report. But then I look at, when I read the rest of the report, the provisional items, provisional items. Budget will fall between 100,000 and 150,000. What provisional items? You're already getting tamper-proof screws from the States, and they're costing us more because our dollar's, what's that, 33 or 30 cents on the dollar. It has a lot of questions, I guess a lot of items in here that I'm not happy about, but also realize the importance of replacing the meters. It just surprises me that after all this time, staff did not investigate a company that's solely Canadian. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Darlene, I guess. Darlene, town of Fort Erie has gone through this process recently, I believe, in the last little bit. Have we picked their brain and learned things from what they did? And could you expand on anything we've picked up?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. Yes, we have. I've spoken extensively with my colleagues in Fort Erie. Their approach is they're doing their water meters over an extended period of time. And they did all the evaluations and went with the same company that we're recommending. And I actually spoke with them to figure out what the provisional items would be worth, because there's a fee. We do have a lot of crawl spaces in Port Colborne, and due to health and safety regulations, you do require 2 people to enter crawl spaces, which is our standard practice for ourselves as well. So there is an additional fee for that, and of course we don't know exactly how many crawl spaces we have. So that's why there's the range. I did use our best just based on how many water meters we currently put in crawl spaces annually with my staff, and we did kind of an extrapolation, so it's hopefully a worst case scenario. They also get into things like having building control valves, and that's where I got the estimate from, and that's why I relied on Fort Erie's experience, because Neptune's currently doing that with them now, and they went back 4 years in their invoices for me and let me know how many crawl spaces they had, how many building control valves were replaced. If there was fee, they do get charged. If people don't show up for their appointment, they do charge you a fee. But they do make several attempts to get in, apparently. They don't just say, oh, we knocked no one was home, we're charging you. But there are the provisional items, and they will be consulting with us. It's not a blank check. They will not be just going willy-nilly. It will be, they will be meeting with us on a weekly basis, and the project manager, it's going to be based here in Port Colborne, will be communicating with us as well. So we will have some control over that as well. But these are unavoidables, and that's what Fort Erie said. It's like, yeah, they were put in back in the 90s, and things have changed. Building configurations have changed. The health and safety regulations have changed, and it's just the cost of getting them replaced.
Councillor Bodnar, any further supplementary? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. These new meters, with the fact that we know that the older meters are not reading properly and not giving us the proper volumes, does that mean that we may be able to somehow get better readings, and that a lot of our unaccounted water loss may disappear? Is that possible?
Mrs. Sutter?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, when I did the report to council back in, I think it was budget time, I had estimated that the lost revenue from having 40% of the meters fail was approximately $30,000. So approximately, let's say 30,000 cubic meters. So not a huge amount, and that was, I believe, I can't can't remember if that was for a year, I think it was for the year. It will help with our unaccounted water. I have spoken with colleagues in Pelham, and they indicated when they changed all of their water meters out, their unaccounted for water dropped by half. And it wasn't necessarily that they had, that their meters were failing that poorly, but it was an opportunity to relook at their billing system and make sure that the accounts were all set up correctly. And they did find some houses that weren't metered, that had gotten missed, and things like that. So there is an opportunity that we're going to see our unaccounted for water change, and we will be recouping more funds as well.
Okay, that's important.
Any further discussion, questions? Being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimous. Oh, we're one opposition. It's carried. Thank you. That would appear that we're end of the items for future consideration. Are there any notices of motion? Yes, Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to bring forward at the next meeting motion to reconsider the four-way stop at Clowley and Elizabeth Street corner.
Okay, Councillor Doucette.
I'm going to be presenting a notice, I'm giving a notice of motion right now to develop our own bylaws that deal with controlling all traffic zones. And what I mean by that is senior zones, school zones, deaf child zones, autistic child zones, anything of that nature. We should have a bylaw. And I don't know of any that we have. So I hope we have something developed so that we can control it. And by doing that, maybe in the school zones, we can have signs like some of the other communities have that says from 7 to 5, and then after that, and then the weekends, you're okay. It would still only go up to 50, of course, because it's within the urban boundary, but at least it's not there. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons that I brought this up is that sitting on Canal Street at 8 o'clock Saturday night, there was a police officer nailing everyone that was going by St. Therese. They were going over 40, guaranteed. It was Saturday night, 8 o'clock. So there has to be a way that we can control some of that. And this may be a way of doing that, so I'm going to be bringing a notice of motion so that we can develop and hopefully staff can bring us back a bylaw that will control all the traffic zones. Not only that one, but all the traffic zones. Because they also need to be revisited. If you have a deaf child, in 10 years, that child might not even be living in that area anymore, and then yet there's still the sign. So that should be revisited maybe every 5 years or something of that nature. Let's check, make sure, and if it is, fine. If they're not there, then we should be taking that sign out. And this is one way of addressing it.
Thank you. Any other notices of motion? There being none, call for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Carried. We're adjourned. Now moving on to the regular meeting of Council 32-15 on Monday, October 26th, today. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one this evening. Due to an amendment during the Committee of the Whole meeting, the bylaw approving the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory Committee will be pulled from this evening's list of bylaws for approval and will be presented at the next council meeting with the appropriate amendments. And the remaining bylaws have been renumbered to suit.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I would entertain a motion then to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, second by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. I'd like to call for, are there any disclosures of interest before we move on? Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a direct pecuniary interest in the in-camera item C, as I represent the brokerage that has the property listed.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm declaring a conflict of interest on item E, because I am on the sort of the Port Colborne Committee for Habitat for Humanity regarding the item listed, as well as item C. And my conflict there is I live in close proximity to the subject lots. Or as item D then. Again, I live in, declaring a conflict of interest because of my proximity of my residence to that, those properties. Councillor Demery, do you might have perhaps a conflict of interest on the Habitat for Humanity item?
I didn't think I did.
Okay.
I
It's your decision.
chair the committee, but I'm not receiving any pay for it, nor would I benefit. I don't know. I could declare conflict, though. I will, just to be clear. You're doing the same, so
Yes,
we will.
I'm doing
I
the
will
same.
declare conflict for the same reasons.
Okay. Move on to adoption of minutes. Maybe we could vote on them en bloc. One motion. That's a special meeting of council 30-15 held on October 5th, 2015. And B, a regular meeting of council 31-15 held on October 13th, 2015. I entertain a motion to accept those minutes. Councillor Bodnar, second by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. Being none, then I would ask for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. There's a proclamation. Lung Month, November 2015. Madam Clerk? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Main. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. One motion en bloc for both the Flavors Advisory Committee meeting of August 11th and minutes of the Port Colborne Public Library Board meeting of August 11th as well, 2015. Moved by Councillor Demeray, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Madam Clerk, consideration of bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 6294-1-2015 being a bylaw to establish an East Village Neighborhood Improvement Task Force. Bylaw 6295-121-15 being a bylaw to establish a committee known as the Port Colborne Social Determinants of Health Advisory Committee, Everyone Matters. Bylaw 6296-122-15 being a bylaw to establish a Tourism and Marketing Advisory Committee. Bylaw 6297-123-15 being a bylaw to close temporarily to vehicular traffic sections of various streets for the purposes of the Santa Claus Parade. And finally, bylaw 6298-124-15 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of October 26, 2015.
I would call for a motion to accept those bylaws. Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Any comments or questions or discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now I would consider a motion to go into closed session. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Item A, minutes of the closed session portion of the October 13, 2015 council meeting. Item B, Planning and Development Report 2015-88 regarding an unsolicited offer for the city to acquire private property pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Item C, Planning and Development Report 2015-89 regarding the potential disposition of CMT lots pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And item D, Verbal Report from the Director of Planning and Development regarding correspondence received from Habitat for Humanity Niagara regarding the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Are there any disclosures of interest other than those have been already disclosed? Okay. We'll move into consideration of the closed items. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.